It's a Saturday afternoon, yet the office is full of employees. Among them is Wei, a fresh graduate who's been working at this company for 6 months now. The company has a 996 work schedule that is 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. But Wei is somewhat used to that at this point and feels grateful for at least having a job. After all, most of his classmates from college are still job hunting. Exhausted, Wei glances out the window and notices something strange. Outside the office building, a group of young people his age are lying flat on the ground. Are they okay? He thought. Should I call an ambulance? But then he sees the signs they're holding and another person taking pictures of them and understands what's going on. They're creating content about the TangPing meme for social media. TangPing literally translates to lying flat. It's a viral meme in China, characterized by these pictures of people, and sometimes animals or animated animals lying flat on the ground. It's where people are so fed up with the relentless hustle culture and the pressure of work that they give up on competing in the economy completely. Lying flat on the ground is supposed to be a metaphor for their resort to do nothing. Now there's an irony to this juxtaposition, with those who are working the 996 right next to those who are lying flat. And this juxtaposition is a microcosm of a broader theme in modern China, where people are facing a choice that feels increasingly black and white. You either work yourself into the ground or lie flat on the ground. On the one hand, 996 is becoming more common. People are working so much that they hardly have time to do anything else. On the other hand, some people are so fed up with overwork that they give up working altogether. How did this happen? Is there a solution for this, and what can we learn from it? That's what I'll discuss in this video. China's intense 996 work schedule has roots in its explosive economic growth since the early 2000s. Grueling work hours had always been one of the factors driving this rapid economic expansion, but the term 996 didn't gain traction until around 2015, as reports of relentless work pressure started to surface from major tech companies. A pivotal moment came in 2019 when Alibaba's founder, Jack Ma, infamously praised 996 as a huge blessing, saying that young people should feel fortunate to get the opportunity to work 12 hours a day, along with some philosophical remarks about how happiness comes from hard work. Now, people have different opinions about work. Some people probably agreed with Jack Ma, but many didn't. In fact, it triggered an online backlash that were exemplified by a handful of memes. For instance, there was a meme called 007, not to be confused with that member of the British Secret Service. 007 in this context means 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. 7 days a week, as in you're basically working all the time. It's meant as a humorous exaggeration of 996, but ironically and unfortunately, it's funny because it is true. Sometimes. It's rarer than 996, but some people do work the 007 schedule, where you work most of the day and for the remainder of the day you are on call, meaning your boss can call on you at any time and you will be expected to make yourself available and start working right away. There was also a meme called 996.ICU, as in you work 996 so much that you end up in the ICU. It's a protest movement against the brutal work schedule. Its GitHub repo apparently became the second most starred repository of all time, which really showed how many people were fed up with this culture of overwork. Now, it's important to note that not every Chinese company does 996. In fact, 996 is technically a violation of labor laws in China. China's Supreme People's Court, along with the government, even jointly issued a guidance in 2021 that reaffirmed the fact that excessive overtime is illegal. This is probably one of the reasons why it's hard to find reliable stats about how many companies practice 996, because companies don't tend to openly admit that they are breaking the laws. And when companies do practice 996, they don't tend to explicitly document it as a company rule, but more so doing it as a tacit expectation from the management. In any case, based on anecdotal reports, many companies still practice 996 in China, especially within the tech sector. Now, the causes for this extreme work culture fall into two broad categories. One is what I call natural causes, resulting from the organic forces of macroeconomics and culture. The other is what I call engineered causes. This one is more deliberate and maybe even sinister. It's where certain people have intentionally arranged things in such a way to perpetuate this toxic work culture in order to benefit from it. I'll discuss both, and I'll begin with the natural causes. And that starts with Chinese education and its emphasis on universities. While here in the West we have trending slogans like college is a scam and escape the matrix, the Chinese education system love universities. From the teachers to the administrators to the parents, every part of the Chinese education system are designed to send students into universities. They consider universities to be a magic pill of sort, where if a kid make it to a prestigious university, then they're set for life. This idea is then indoctrinated to Chinese students from a young age, many of whom will then spend their entire childhood preparing for the college entrance exam. Although many students think that the college degree will solve all their problems, they are in for a rude awakening after graduation. If everyone has a college degree, then having one no longer makes you special. Further, since China produces so many graduates with similar skills, they're replaceable in the eyes of the employers, while at the same time, the number of jobs did not increase nearly as quickly as that of degree holders. On the one hand, this caused dangerous levels of youth unemployment in China. The rate of youth unemployment hit more than 20% in 2023, which had caused Chinese officials to stop publishing the stats on youth unemployment altogether. On the other hand, this gives employers massive leverage. Since there is excess amount of job seekers competing for a limited number of jobs, employers can potentially demand whatever they want. They can impose harsh terms like the 996, and job seekers don't have a choice but to accept it, because if you don't accept it, there are thousands more fresh graduates who will. But it doesn't end just with a simple surplus of talent. Some employers actually engineer a perpetual state of overwork to maximize their gains. This dynamics is captured in the Chinese meme 内卷, which translates to involution. I first came across the involution meme from the YouTube video titled Why Chinese Students Study So Hard. Now, involution is actually an academic terminology. It comes from an anthropological study on Indonesian rice farmers by Clifford Geertz. Geertz observed that when these farmers introduced more workers and more complex farming practices to their farms, they did not necessarily increase farming output on a per-person basis. Chinese netizens took this concept of involution and turned it into a meme, because many Chinese youth find themselves in a similar situation of doing a lot of work that yields no benefit, as if running pointlessly on a treadmill. This involution is caused by people's competition with each other. Now, competition is usually a good thing. In a healthy setting, the extra effort people invest to compete can yield genuine rewards, such as innovation, creativity, or unique breakthroughs that can benefit everyone. In an evolutionary environment, however, people work harder just to stay in place, and any potential benefits quickly evaporate in the face of escalating rivalry. A good analogy for this is to imagine that you are watching a movie in a movie theater, and the people sitting in front of you decide to stand up to get a better view of the movie. But now they're blocking your view, so you have to stand up too. This in turn causes the people behind you to also stand up. Next thing you know, the whole theater is standing. Now, since everyone is standing, no one is actually getting a better view than when everyone was sitting down. The extra effort the audience are putting in to stand is therefore wasted, pointless effort, caused by their competition with each other for a better view. But at the same time, and this is the more sinister part, no one can afford to sit down either. As a result, everyone ends up working harder, but this hard work produces no winner. No one obtained any extra benefits from this extra work. And that is what Chinese netizens mean by this involution meme. Now, a typical Chinese person would find themselves in an evolutionary environment since first grade. In Chinese education, students compete with each other to get into good universities, but there are only so many spots in elite universities. So when you see that your classmate is working hard to get those spots, you start working harder too, so you don't lose the spots to them. This competition causes everyone to work harder, while the number of spots in elite universities remain the same. So the outcome doesn't change. The same number of people make it to universities. It's just now takes a lot more misery and hard work to get there. I made this video on Chinese education if you're interested in learning more. Now, since Chinese people have been experiencing evolution since childhood, it's almost natural to continue that once they get into the workplace. But there's something more sinister about the workplace, because now that money is involved, there's an incentive for bad actors to manipulate and take advantage of people. You see, the classical version of evolution has no winners. No one in the movie theater benefits from standing, but there are winners in the workplace. And that will be the business owners. They're the one that profits from the extra efforts of their employees. So the business owners have an incentive to intentionally induce evolution in their employees and capture the extra profit resulted from their employees' extra efforts. For example, business owners can introduce things like performance-based compensation and bonuses, which in turn causes employees to work harder to compete with each other for these bonuses. But the bonuses are limited. The number of people receiving the bonus in the end does not change. Still, everyone has worked harder as a result, with the business owners cashing in on this extra hard work. What's more, employees are often so busy competing with each other that they don't realize that they're being taken advantage of, that the extra efforts they put in don't benefit themselves, but only benefit the owners of the companies they work for. Now, there is a solution to evolution, because evolution is at bottom a coordination problem. You see, when everyone in the theater remains standing, no one person can decide to sit down by themselves. But if there is a way to coordinate everyone, then they can all sit down together. The problem, therefore, is how to achieve this coordination. The lying flat meme is such an attempt at coordination. From the surface, lying flat seems like a funny way for young people to vent about life online. Some older generations also see it as another example of Gen Zs being too soft and giving up too quickly. But there's more depth to it than meets the eye. On a deeper level, it's actually an attempt to coordinate everyone in the movie theater of Chinese economy to sit down. To put it more concretely, it's a wake-up call for people to recognize that they're being manipulated to compete in the rat race, that their time and efforts spent competing with each other only fuels the pockets of the rich and do not benefit themselves. From that perspective, lying flat can be seen as a social movement where young people reject societal pressures of overwork. They forego traditional milestones like wealth and status in favor of personal well-being and priorities, and in so doing coordinate everyone to exit the rat race together. If everyone stops putting up with the 996, then companies have no choice but to return to more reasonable employment conditions. Now, as the meme spread, more people joined the movement, and it was actually making some impressive progress in terms of public awareness and shifting attitudes before the government shut it down. The Chinese government considered the lying flat meme to be promoting negative social values, was harmful to youth and societal morale, and undermines economic and social stability. So they started censoring online activities related to the meme and ultimately stopped it from spreading. To understand why the Chinese government decided to step in, it's important to note that the governments of most economies don't want people to exit the rat race. Because just like business owners, the government also benefits from the evolutionary efforts of the masses. As employees work harder and companies make more money, that causes the economy to grow and the government can collect more tax revenue, for instance. In other words, the government also has an incentive to keep everyone standing in the movie theater, so to speak. Now, since people can't post about lying flat anymore, they needed something else to vent their frustration. And as such, BaiLan is born. BaiLan means let it rot. It's a more cynical evolution of the lying flat meme. If lying flat hinted at resting to preserve well-being, let it rot goes further, suggesting a willingness to let one's prospect and ambitions decay altogether. But just like lying flat, let it rot started gaining traction but was ultimately shut down by the government too. Now, throughout this video, you might have noticed a few themes that are not exclusive to China. One of which is this tension between rapid growth and individual well-being. To be fair, the 996 has had some positive impacts. The extraordinary efforts and long hours from Chinese workers have fueled China's explosive economic growth. It's transformed China from one of the poorest nations in the world into a global economic powerhouse within a few decades, and lifting millions out of poverty in the process. The average Chinese consumers do benefit from this in the form of affordable goods, fast and convenient services, and in general a big increase in living standards that are unimaginable just a generation ago. But it's also true that this growth comes at the expense of a lot of human misery. The question is it worth it? Is growth worth it when it comes at the expense of this much suffering? And if it was worth it before, when poverty was a national emergency, is it still worth it now that China is the second largest economy in the world? Is it still worth it to work this hard to chase after even more growth? Now, this is in many ways a personal question, namely, is it worth it for you? Some people, for example, genuinely enjoy working all the time, while some people might prefer to do nothing. But it is a problem when these are the only two choices available, as I would imagine that a lot of us will prefer to fall somewhere in the middle of these two extremes. In any case, the problem of involution and the rat race is not unique to China. It is more extreme there in the pressure cooker that is the Chinese economy, but rat race itself is a universal phenomenon. It is therefore useful for us to reflect on this Chinese story as a case study with which to examine our own lives, to think about whether we're in a metaphorical movie theater right now, to some degree, whether we're standing up pointlessly along with the people around us, and whether it is time to sit back down.